92 shot and 16 killed in Chicago this past 4th of July weekend. Yikes. Welcome back to Bible Bears, everyone. I'm Ryder Cullison. So, another bloody weekend in Chicago. This is the worst of 2021 so far. I, for one, am actually happy that I live where I live. I don't think we've had a murder in my small town in years. 92, I mean, there are a lot of people in Chicago, but 92 shot, 16 dead in just one weekend? It boggles the imagination. Now, before we get into that story, and the joke of the day, and the verse of the day, and the prayer of the day, don't forget to hit that bell notification so that you will be notified when I post new videos. So, what is the bad dad joke of the day? Why does Snoop Dogg carry an umbrella? Faux drizzle. Alright, let's get into this. As I said, 92 shot, 16 wounded in Chicago. That is pretty bad, especially when you compare it to U.S. soldier death rates in Afghanistan. Now, yes, those soldiers in Afghanistan do live on a heavily guarded military base. And yes, I suppose if they started turning their weapons on each other and robbing each other for their MREs or their boots and stuff, it would get pretty bloody over there as well. But considering that they are in a war zone and only 11 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, died in 2020, that's pretty good compared to the 774 Chicagoans that died in 2020. In 2019, 24 U.S. soldiers died. Compared that to 506 people in Chicago in 2019. And in 2018, only 14 U.S. soldiers died, which I say only, but every loss of U.S. soldier life is important, as is every Chicagoan that dies. In 2018, 561 people in Chicago were victims of homicide. Those rates are far, exceedingly higher than the war death toll in Afghanistan. Now, I'm not in any way suggesting that Afghanistan is a wonderful place to live. Don't book your plane tickets just yet. There's lots of problems over there. And as I mentioned, the soldiers are on a base. But when you compare those two numbers, they're quite startling. Because every soldier that dies in Afghanistan, we weep over, correct? We want to end the war in Afghanistan, but how do we end the war, the civil war, really, in Chicago? While neighborhoods are warring with each other. As one police officer said over the weekend, it is a war zone in Chicago. And what's even more startling is the death per capita rate. For major U.S. cities, if you were to rank them, Chicago would be 7th, with only 8 people dead per 100,000. Do you know who number 1 is? St. Louis, 24.5 people dead per 100,000. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but if you lived in a small town of only 10,000 people, in a 10,000 person county is very small. You pretty much know a lot of those people. That would be like 2.4 murders a year in your little small community. Now people are going to say, hey, what's causing all this? And nobody really knows for sure, but guns often get blamed for it. They say it's gun violence. It's the guns. We see a correlation between the increased purchasing of guns and the increased murder rate. Well, no kidding. A person's decided that they want to murder somebody, so they go out and buy a gun, and then they go murder them. It's absolutely insane to insinuate that just buying a gun makes you want to murder somebody. The gun isn't whispering to the person, yo, you got to kill somebody this weekend. Was the mail whispering to Ted Kaczynski? Were those kettles or those pots whispering to the Boston bombers that they needed to go blow up some marathon runners? Were the machetes whispering to those murderers in the Rwandan genocide? Was the fertilizer whispering to Timothy McVeigh, go blow up a building? No. In similar fashion, the guns aren't whispering to people saying, you need to go out and blow some people away. So what is the cause of all these murders? Why is the murder rate increasing? Well, some people say it's the pandemic, which maybe partly it is. People are cooped up, they're getting angry, but is that still an excuse? No. Others will say it's poverty. People are poor, so they go out and kill people. Others will say it's racism. It's all the racism, and that's what makes people want to go out and kill people. I don't quite get it because many of these communities are segregated. For instance, you'll have a community of Latinos, you'll have a community of blacks, you'll have a community of whites. And in these communities where these murder rates are high, it's whites killing whites or Latinos killing Latinos or blacks killing blacks. So where's the racism? People are missing the point here. They're not digging deep enough. And all these explanations, something else external to the individual is always blamed. Racism, poverty, pandemic, their weapons. Yes, handguns overwhelmingly account for most of the murders in the US. And yet, we don't hear arguments against handguns, we hear arguments made against assault rifles. But did you know more people in the US are killed every year by blunt objects like hammers or baseball bats than by assault rifles? More people than that are killed by your fists and feet in combat than by blunt objects or by rifles. Are your feet whispering to you to kill people? Is the hammer from Black & Decker just saying, oh yeah, I got me a new steel-clawed hammer, I'm gonna go out and shred some people? No, of course not. Likewise, the guns aren't doing it either. Neither was the mail, or the machete, or the fertilizer, or the car that someone plowed into a crowd, or the poison that's used in Africa to kill people. What kills people is the wickedness in our hearts. That's something nobody wants to discuss. It's always something else other than the individual. We can't blame the individual. Well, guess what? You need to blame the individual because the individual is making the choice in their circumstances, whether they're poor or whether they're rich, whether they're discriminated against, whether they've got a gun in their hand, whether they're confined to their house because of a pandemic and they're just sick of wearing a mask. They make a choice to commit an act of violence on somebody else, whether it's murder or rape or arson or burglary or just some other type of revenge. They make that choice because they covet, because they envy, because they have anger or malice in their heart. Where do these things come from? It comes from the devil, who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. It comes from a lack of God in our neighborhoods. It comes from a lack of morals being taught to children through fathers or through pastors or through other community leaders. This is why people are out killing others. They have no integrity. They have no moral. They have no God. They feel that there is no repercussions for their actions. It's not racism. It's not because they can't buy a loaf of bread. Yeah, people are hungry, and you can make a choice to kill somebody for their loaf of bread or not kill them. The choice is yours. You have the free will to either shoot a 12-year-old kid or not shoot them. So, let's not shoot them. Wickedness comes from within, not from without. It's time for the prayer of the day. I would mention this person's name, but I can't pronounce it properly. But I want to pray for a woman in Uganda. Yes, Uganda. We can pray for people outside this country. She is 38. She recently converted from Islam to Christianity. Her family, some of her family members got wind of it. Her mother warned her. This woman sought refuge at her pastor's house, Christian pastor. Her family, her father and some other family members tracked her down. They beat her and then forced her to drink poison. Finally, the neighbors heard her scream. The family fled. The pastor came home, took her to a clinic. She got some first aid attention. She's doing okay right now, but we need to pray for her and for all those people in those parts of the world where Christianity, converting to Christianity, is basically punishable by death. Christians are being persecuted and tortured and being executed all around the world. So let's not only pray for this woman, but pray for all the Christians out there, and not just for the Christians, but for these people who have this anger and bitterness and lack of understanding and love in their hearts. Let's pray for them as well. Guys, what say you? I'd love to hear your comments on Chicago and the homicide rate and everything else that's going on in the country. What do you think is driving up the rate? I, for one, don't buy into the racism narrative or the pandemic narrative. Yes, all these things could be complicit in these rates escalating, but I really think it's a lack of morals and integrity, a lack of God in our schools, and just a sense that there won't be any repercussions or justice. But what say you? Let me know in the thoughts below. Guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit share and subscribe. And as always, I love you and have a blessed day.